Did you know, according to a report by iMark Group, the global ad market is expected to reach $770 billion by 2024? And with billions of social media users around the world spending on social media ads, it's expected to surpass $50 billion this year. While there's certainly a substantial portion of ad buys that are self served by business owners, the majority of advertising today is still handled by marketing agencies. And friends, that's where you come in. I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't already know when I say that working up ad campaigns for clients is extremely rewarding, sometimes frustrating, lucrative, and maybe even stressful at times. Hi, friend. I'm so excited for today's episode of Agency Accelerated because this is the show that's going to give you Mad Men level insight into the world of advertising. Want to know more? I thought so. Welcome back to Agency Accelerated, where we explore ways to grow and scale your agency with some of the most trusted brands and experts in the industry. I'm Stephanie Liu, and we're live every other Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Make sure you head on over to agorapulse.com/calendar and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. And stay until the very end because you'll get a chance to get your hands on an easy way to add more revenue to your marketing agency. So, hey everyone, if you're just tuning in, let me know where you're tuning in from. I'm here in cloudy San Diego. Oh, goodness. Fall is just around the corner. So, let us know where you're tuning in from. I'd love to hear where you are watching, whether it's on desktop or even on mobile. So listen, friends, in a 1993 interview with Leaders Magazine, our guest today told reporters that a large staff is important if you're moving furniture, but a smart and prolific staff is what does it. So it's more important to have smart people who understand clients than to have the largest creative department in New York. Whether you're running ad campaigns or building websites, as an agency, there's nothing more important than understanding clients. Listen, they're coming to you for help. But with them comes creative needs alongside time and budget constraints. So we've invited the perfect guest to help us navigate this challenge. Let's go ahead and bring him on. Come on through. Hey, Alan.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
How are you? How you feeling?
Fine. Feeling really, really well. We're here in
Good.
Savannah right now. Raining, and
Oh,
it does. The weather here is really weird. It changes every 5 minutes. At one time, it's like raining, and then it stops, sun is out, 110 degrees, and then it rains again, and then it gets just plain cool. It's really, really kind of crazy. It has to, and when it snows, then you have all the seasons within 1 hour.
oh, that's interesting. Well, seasons is something that I don't experience quite often in San Diego. There's really, when people ask me how's San Diego, I say it's sunny, it's raining, or it's cloudy. That's it. There's there's usually not much that's going on. But
Right?
before we get started,
Mhm.
everyone, I want to give you a quick background on who Alan Kay is. If you don't know, Alan Kay is a legendary advertising executive and entrepreneur. Yeah. He created a television ad for Xerox that aired during the 1976 Super Bowl featuring a monk called Dominic, which we'll show you and talk about in just a moment. He's also known for his See Something, Say Something advertising campaign for the New York MTA. Alan's work includes ad campaigns for, you might have heard, Coca-Cola, Exxon, and Nabisco, and Alan holds 22 Clio Awards. Advertising Age named him one of the 11 influential high-tech marketing professionals of the 20th century, and we're thrilled to have him here on Agency Accelerated. So, Alan, what an
Yes.
amazing
Mhm.
career.
Uh, yeah, I get bored easy. That's
It seems
uh,
like the life of a creative, right? It's I feel like sometimes when we're working on ad campaigns, there's this excitement, the buildup, the production of it. And then, yes, there's stress involved in it. But at the very end, you're like, okay, what's next?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Like they say, you're only as good as your last campaign, which puts a lot of pressure on you. So I said, okay, my next campaign has to be better than my last one. So
That's
it's.
so true. As a content creator, as a live streamer, when I
Mhm.
work on shows just like this too, I'm always thinking about, well, what's the new set design going to look like? How are we going to differentiate the run of shows? So I love that you bring that up. So,
Mm.
Alan, can you start off with sharing a little more about what you do and how you got into the advertising space?
Sure. Um, I started in advertising when I was 3 years old. My father was the controller of Gray, and he used to take me into work from time to time. And I would hang out in the bullpen or the art studio, and I would see them working. And ever since I could hold a crayon or anything that'll make a mark, I drew. I love that. And the one thing, excuse me, that I remember most was looking over an artist's shoulder when he was doing a cartoon of the um, Campbell's kids on a roller coaster. And all I could think about was I was on a roller coaster and I threw up. So that kind of stuck in my mind. Um, since then, I stay away from roller coasters and still do artwork. I write anything creative, um, should have my name on it. And that's how I got into the business. I grew up in it. Um, went to school in California, Art Center for advertising. Graduated on a Tuesday, flew back to New York on a Wednesday. Thursday, I was hired by McKay Erickson, um, and I told them I don't want to work here. This is true. At that time, Wellsridge Green was the hot agency, and that's what I had my sights set on. And the person who hired me, Laurel Cutler, who was quite a famous marketing person, she said, "Well, you're going to work here whether you like it or not." And she offered me um, amazing amount of money for a kid right out of school, well, with a wife and a child, just coming back to New York. And she said, "Look, here's the deal: bring your book in every day. Go to Wellsridge Green if you want anywhere else, but in the meantime, you're staying here." And as luck would have it, I couldn't get it. I couldn't get arrested at Wellsridge. Couldn't get an appointment at all. So we wound up staying there for be about 2 or 3 years. Then I got drafted with my partner, Lois Corey, amazing woman. May she rest in peace. She passed away in 1990. Very sad. And then Interpublic drafted us and brought us over to an agency called Jack Tinker and Partners
Wow.
agency, creative boutique. Did amazing, amazing work. The original Alka Seltzer work was theirs, and a whole lot of things that really, really broke new ground. Brilliant people. Um, and actually, Lois, she started there. This is cute. Lois was a comedy writer. She started at 18. They took her out of school, paid her also like six figures. Is amazing. Very funny woman, a dry sense of humor, um, and quick as can be. So she loved working. She worked with Woody Allen and Mel Brooks and all the famous comedy writers that kind of invented the business. And then television moved out to California. She was a New York lady. Didn't want to move to California, but figured, I have to go where the work is. So she went, and actually, she and Woody Allen flew out together on the plane. Woody's mother was there, and she put a little thing on him. "Hi, I'm Woody." So in case he got lost, people would know who he was. And she worked there for a while, and she definitely hated it. She did not like California at all. So she decided I have to come back to New York and see what I can do there. She came back with her husband. And her husband worked. He was a photography rep, and she just like stayed home. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? He was looking at the paper one day in the classifieds, and there was a little ad that said, "Advertising copywriter wanted, no experience necessary."
Interesting.
Okay, so her husband said, "Lois, this is for you." So it was Jack Tinker and Partners. As I said, was hot as a pistol. She went over. They loved her work, which was comedy. She's very smart. She knew how to advertise. Very good feel for people. Very intuitive, and they made her a junior partner. So that started. Then she moved to McCann. I came to McCann. She adopted me, and then we both wound up back at Tinker. They brought us in to do the Rockefeller campaign. That it was a campaign that they said he'd never win. I think they kind of threw us to the lions there. Um, but sure enough, we got him in. It was fourth unprecedented. Sorry, un. I, presidential is not the. I'm stuck in the word unprecedented. Got it. Um, win for him. And from there, we were hired by Needham Harper and Steers, an agency that I never had heard of, on a client called Xerox that no one had ever heard of.
Yeah.
And and in fact, people spelled Xerox with a Z, and they thought it was some kind of antifreeze. And it was our job to make them famous, and that's what we did. That's kind of what we did for every client we had. It's kind of they had to be the stars of the show.
Love it. Great. Well, and that's the perfect segue because let's talk about that famous Xerox campaign, right? In fact,
Mhm.
let's have Mike, our show producer, show everyone that ad. So everyone that's just tuning in, give us a minute.
Hey,
Ever since people started recording information, there's been a need to duplicate it.
Very nice work, Brother Dominic.
Thank you.
Very nice. Now, I would like 500 more sets.
Brother Dominic, how are you? Could you do a big job for me?
The Xerox 9200 duplicating system, unlike anything we've ever made, feeds and cycles originals, has a computerized programmer that controls the entire system, can duplicate, reduce, and assemble a virtually limitless number of complete sets, and does it all at an incredible 2 pages per second.
Here are your sets, Father. The 500 sets you asked for.
It's a miracle.
Wow, that was brilliant. Alan, please, can you tell us what
Yep.
was the story behind that ad?
Okay, kind of an interesting story. The idea hit me at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I called up Lois, which I did all the time at crazy hours, and she picked up the phone. Hello, Alan. I said, Lois, a monk. She had a great idea. We'll talk about it in the morning, and that's how that's how the monk was born. And it wasn't an easy sell. A lot of people say, "Oh, commercials are so smart," and oh, they must have bought it immediately. Well, the head of the company was very religious, and he thought he would be excommunicated if he were to do that commercial. Excuse me. And I said, "No, it's human. It's pleasant. There's nothing wrong with it." Um, he said, "No, I'm sorry. I'm putting my foot down. That's not going on the air." So I said, what would make you change your mind? He said, the only thing that would get me to change my mind would be a letter from Cardinal Cook saying he liked the commercial. I said, okay, fine. Well, I always had friends in politics and everything. And I got a letter from Cardinal Cook, and he said he thought the commercial was amazing. He said it personalized the church, which is something that they were looking to do. Um, and it's really about a miracle or a religious miracle. So I brought the letter to David Kearns, who was the chairman at the time, and he said, oh, okay, you did it.
You did it.
Yeah, go shoot it. And
That's
we did. And it kind of took on a life of its own. A lot of the work that I've done, I'm not a big promoter of myself. I like to promote the work, but and the clients, but I don't like I'm believe it or not, I'm kind of shy. So um, a lot of the work that I do, people see and they talk about, and it's not something that I fuel the fires like a lot of agency heads do. It's just the way I am, I'd say.
Yeah, you want to let the work speak for itself. I do have to say that I love that you didn't back down with the idea, the concept, and you really came to the client and you said, "Well, what would make you change your mind?" Because it's so often clients don't have that same vision that we do as far as how a campaign can impact other people, or they have different filters and beliefs around it. And for you to go out there and get exactly what he needed in order for him to change his mind, that's dedication. And I feel like every agency person should do that versus just like, okay, well, scrap that idea. Let's do what we can for the client and that
Hmm.
really made it successful.
Yeah, that brings up something that I talk about when people ask me to talk, um, and that is that a big mistake agencies make is they give the client what they want, but not necessarily what they need. Sometimes what they want is what they need, but sometimes it isn't. And when cases like that come up, then it's up to you. They're coming to you for your expertise. And if you don't exhibit your expertise, why are they there? Um,
Exactly.
okay, exactly. Which is it's not always that easy because sometimes you have clients that just don't get it. So then what do you do? Well, you just gotta hope and pray and reason with them. The I've always found if you give them good common sense reasons, if you're dealing with somebody bright, they're going to get it.
Yeah.
If you're not, they'll never get it. Find yourself another client because they'll drive you crazy, and you'll never have anything to show for it. Um, so you kind of dig yourself into a hole. And I would never let that happen. I can say in all my years in the business, I have never done anything bad.
Yeah.
Not everything was stellar, um, but there was nothing that you would go ah. Um,
Yeah, I would definitely say that that is sage advice. In fact, it reminds me of that famous Henry Ford quote where he says, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have just said faster horses,
mhm, right,
And
exactly,
I think really when you're working with a brand that is unknown, to really make them go unforgettable and make them memorable, sometimes you just have to break the norm and do a pattern interrupt. And that's, as you said, that's where they have to come to you for your expertise and trust you. And having that agency client trust that rapport is always important because if the client always knew what they needed, then they would have done it themselves. Why would they bring us
exactly.
in? Right.
And a lot of them are doing that today. That's why advertising is so shitty.
It's it's like a faded copy of another faded copy of the messaging in the campaign. I was just talking to a good friend about this, and I was like, literally, if you took this landing page and you swapped out the logo, it would sound like any other conference out
Mhm.
there. So what's the difference that makes the difference? So
Mhm.
always helpful to know.
No,
So Alan,
yes.
another famous campaign that you were behind 20 years ago is the famous "If you see something, say something." And
Mhm.
I would love to know how that campaign came about, but also how you managed to hold on to that client for so long.
Okay. Good question. I get asked it a lot. Um, the campaign came to be on 9/12, the day after the horrendous attack on the World Trade Center. And I was in my office feeling really bad, just like everybody else, and frustrated and just wanted to do something. And the only thing that I know how to do really well is advertising. So I said to myself, well, what can I do that could have a lasting effect? Because I knew a lot of my contemporaries were going to do very nationalistic kind of stuff. You know,
Mm,
we're Americans, which is fine, but that's going to make people feel good for the moment. I wanted to do something that had a lasting effect. So I thought about it, and I said, well, what's the problem? And the problem is people, particularly in New York, are complacent. When we grow up, we're trained never look at anybody's eyes, look down, don't
yeah,
look what's going around because somebody might look back at you, and we grow up that way. And now things had to change. So I was thinking that in Israel it's much different because of things that have gone on there, and the people are aware of their surroundings. And there are disastrous things that happen, but also disastrous things that don't happen because people know, hey, this looks a little suspicious. They tell the authorities, it's taken care of. So I said, if we could just get Americans to be aware of what's around them, and if they see something that is kind of out of whack, um, they don't keep it to themselves. They tell authorities, and if it is something bad, they can help to avert it. And if it isn't something bad, okay, fine. You take that chance. The fact that you could possibly avert a disaster is worth um, see something and it's nothing. That's the thing
yeah,
that you really hope for. That's excuse me, the thing that you really hope for. So now I ask myself, what would I tell people to do? What would the advice be? And just very simply, if you see something, say something.
yeah,
And that sounded good to me. I have a jotter that I'm never without, and I just wrote it down. I looked at it, and I said, "It looks good. It sounds good. Um, we're gonna go. I'm gonna go with that." That Thursday, there was a meeting at the Ad Council to discuss what the advertising industry could do in terms of creating some kind of campaign. And there were a good, let's say, more than a dozen agency heads there. And everybody talked about what they would do. And I saved myself for last. I said, well, I kind of did something. And I showed them the campaign. I had 6 ads in it at the time. The lead ad was if you see something, say something. And then the ads that followed that dropped down to be the slogan at the bottom with a different headline each time. And they thought that I nailed it. And the head of the ad council had a meeting set up with the Justice Department that next Thursday. And she said, I'm going to show that to them and present it. Now, it was interesting because I did it for it to be a gift from the advertising industry. I got no money for it. I didn't want any money for it. In fact, I insisted that I not be paid. That's not why I did it. I did it to save lives, not to save money. And she showed it to them, and she thought it would be like a slam dunk. And they wanted nothing to do with it. They said, what do we need that for? This is silly. We definitely, forget it. They shut the door on it. And they said, well, also, what would happen if somebody called? That's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
So she walked away very disheartened, told me about it. I wasn't exactly happy about it either. And for the next 9 months, I was like the ancient mariner. Everybody that I could, I would tell about the concept, and we really should do it. And nobody really was interested at all. Um, and it's the one thing that I got, the most positive thing, and I get that a lot for the cause related stuff that I do. They say, "Oh, this is great. Somebody should do this. They really should," which means somebody other than me. And so I learned that pretty darn fast. And about 9 months later, I got a call from my client at the MTA, and she said that the brass decided that they need a security campaign, and do I still have, if you see something, say something? And I said, yeah, I do. Got no interest in it whatsoever. So she said, could we use it? And okay, they were a client at that time, spending about $15 million a year. I'm not going to say no under any circumstances, but I said yes because I wanted to see it out there. And I said, there's just a couple of provisions. I said, number one, no one makes any money on it at all. Anybody is free to use it for anti-terrorism stuff, but they can't get paid. That's not what it's about. Number two, I share in the copyright. And number three, I get approval before things go out. Okay, they said, okay, fine, that's a deal. The Ironically, the only thing that they stuck with was that I wouldn't take any money. And then it was about 8 years later, Department of Homeland Security woke up and they adopted the campaign. And it happened right after the Times Square incident where they found a smoking bomb. One of the vendors, a t-shirt vendor, and he reported it to mounted police who called in the bomb squad. And sure enough, there was something that could have gone off, and the fuse kind of was still smoldering, and they saved it. And if it had gone off, this was a Saturday in Times Square, which was busy as could be, it would have taken out thousands of people.
Wow.
And when the vendor was interviewed and he was going into a car, the reporter said, what would you tell New Yorkers? And he looked at the camera and he said, if you see something, say something. That's when the lid came off, really. And I got calls from all media all over the world, actually. The French sent in a camera crew to interview me. Germany, we did it on the phone for radio. I was on the radio in New York for 2.5 hours, in fact, for an interview. I didn't think I could talk that much about anything, but the questions kept coming and coming and coming. And that was another thing that took on a life of its own. Um, I never promoted it. MTA never promoted it. And the first week it was out, um, somebody sent me a fax of a newspaper in Canada, excuse me, in Australia. And the accents are kind of similar every once in a while. Anyway, um, and it showed the Perth train station with a huge banner going all across like 5 tracks. And it said, if you see something, say something. The way I designed it, very simple, clean. And I mean, I was amazed to see it. And a few days later, I got a call from someone in Australia, had an agency. He said, God, that was so amazing. And he said, how did you get them to put a credit on it for you? That's so unusual. I said, I don't know. I didn't ask, but he said at the bottom it said Creative Core Camp Partners. So I said, gee, that's nice. And from then it just got getting picked up and picked up and picked up. And now I'm terrible with numbers. I have to add 2 plus 2. I get 5 if I'm lucky. Um, but it's in over, way over 1,000 places in the world. Institutions are using it. And like I said, it went there on its own steam. I have a very good friend who's a consultant. He said, do you realize, he said, that is the first viral campaign and didn't even have the internet working for it. So I said, no, I never really thought of it that way. So all I care about is to save lives. They still use it regularly. It's doing its job, and it's said to me that advertising does work, which
Yeah.
kind of good thing, especially if you're in
Wow.
the business.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. I never really heard the full story for that. And it's probably one of the reasons why I love Agency Accelerated so much is that I could learn so much from our guests and the work that they've put out there. But just I mean, that campaign in and of itself is just so impactful, and it was a shared value that everyone around the world can really hone in on, and just it resonates. It resonates so well. And I think I probably even said the same thing to my little one where I was like, you're going to school. If you see something, make sure you say something.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's wow.
Mm.
That's a great legacy to have there.
I tell this, I think an important lesson for agency people and clients, and that is the public is pretty smart.
Yeah.
That they tend, particularly clients, tend to talk down to them, oh, too smart for the room. Whenever anybody says that, I say that get a smarter room. Um, and what's the best way that I could put it? Okay, the MTA was concerned with the idea because they were afraid it might have backlash. It might like make people scared, and they would stop taking the subways and the buses, and it would kind of backfire. So they did research. They had a number of groups, and they showed the campaign. And then we all held our breath. I kind of didn't because I had a feeling it was going to come out. And to a person, everybody said, "This is a wonderful thing." In a million years, they would never think the MTA would do something like this. It is so smart because they can't be everywhere. Police can't be everywhere. And they're asking for our help to save us and our friends and our neighbors. Um, that New York has 8 million people. They said that gives us like 16 million eyes looking out for things, um, which gives us a lot better chance of averting disasters. And they applauded it. It was great. As soon as the research was over, it was up in the subways. That was it.
Wow. That's that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. In fact, We have Anthony Samu who is tuning in right now, and he says, as a former New Yorker and someone that worked search and rescue at Ground Zero, thank you.
Mm.
Good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, Daniel Care says, what a great guest. So, if you're just tuning in, we're talking about adding the digital advertising landscape and what's changed for marketing agencies. But first, a quick reminder and bonus, this show is brought to you by Agorapulse, voted the #1 social media management tool by customers on the planet's top review sites. And if you're looking for an easy way to increase and diversify your agency's revenue streams, Agorapulse has a free webinar to help you do exactly that. Head on over to bit.ly/ad agency revenue to sign up, learn, and start driving more revenue from social media services. So, Ellen, let's go back to advertising. Our
Okay.
audiences, our audiences today, they particularly among marketing agencies, right? They're heavily focused on digital advertising platforms like
Mhm.
Google and Facebook. And I'd love to know how someone with your extensive background views today's advertising landscape. How have things changed?
Okay. Um, they have changed in execution more than anything else. But another way that they've changed is in understanding the basic principles of advertising, which haven't changed at all. Um, Whether you're online or on TV, the things that go into persuading people have not changed because human beings have not changed. Whether they're watching television or a computer screen, they're still the same people. And there is this is no secret, a lot of criticism about advertising that what happened, it's stupid, I don't remember the brand, it's mindless, the things are funny, they try to be funny but they're not. You hear all of this stuff, and that's because somewhere along the line the principles were either forgotten or ignored or never taught. And every once in a while you see something in any medium that nails it, that people know what they're doing and why they're doing it. And I've seen stuff online that's embarrassing, on TV embarrassing, and then I've also occasionally see something where they knew what they were doing. They knew the industry. I mean, we're here to help other companies be successful. That's our job. Not to show off, not to really show how creative we are, but to show how smart we are. And I feel that if people got back to understand the just basic principles of advertising and apply it to digital media, you're going to see a great awakening of creativity, smart creativity, bright
Yeah.
creativity, effective creativity. Um, I've been around long enough to see many years of advertising. Um, Sometimes we had like um, stellar periods, and other times we were in the doldrums. And when we had the great periods, it was because the advertising had reason. They knew what they were doing. They knew why they were. I'd say their reason, the reason for being, and that was exhibited. And if we could somehow get kind of that in and not be so hung up on the execution and trying to do another Star Wars, but saying, what do we have to accomplish? What is the best way to accomplish it? What's the simplest way? What's the least expensive way? And what's the most effective way? And those are the things that I look at and what influences my work. The other thing that influences me is I believe in flesh and blood more than bits and bytes. I think bits and bytes are great execution. Not I'm not against it at all. But what I am for is for the advertising to have a sense of human not a sense of technology. Um, Technologists, scientists, okay, they're into technology. Normal people are just into normal things, their children, their lives, their jobs. Um, Nothing to do with how things are done, but what things are done and what it's telling them and how it's helping them. And I say that use every medium available to you that will reach these people and put something in it that will mean something to them. That's
Yeah.
what's most important. The Where it is has to be correct, otherwise you're talking to the wrong people. But a lot of people in the business are just so focused on where it is and who it goes to, and not what it's saying. Um, and that's what I've made my career on. What is it saying? How is it influencing people and making their lives better? Um, and that's kind of the story of my life.
Yeah, that's powerful. I I love that because I feel like as a social media agency owner myself, and I do see ads on, in my Facebook feeds, in my stories, and all these different things. They'll get a chuckle and whatnot, but the ones where I'm like, I need this in my life, or I keep reflecting back onto it, or it's something that it's shareable in the sense that I'm like, hey, I think this would help you, but it has meaning and it leaves like this residue that you just can't, like, you don't forget it.
Hmm.
You'll always remember it and it'll always be a
Yeah.
part of you. And that's something that you could really walk away with. And
Hmm.
so, Ellen, in your opinion,
Hmm.
what do you think makes for a great creative director in the digital age?
Okay. Somebody that understands advertising, what it's about, understands the customers of their clients. That's number one. I have five kind of guidelines that I talk about, and whenever we hired somebody, I talked about this too. Really, really simple, and that is start with the customer, live with the client, uncover the obvious, keep it simple, and follow through. And if anyone were to look at the really successful, famous, amazing advertising, you could trace those principles going through it. Um, a good creative director has to understand the business and the business's communication. Once they do that and they understand what a brand is about and how to tie everything into it, then advertising works. Then it's good, it's smart. People don't criticize it. In fact, they say, God, I saw a great commercial and I really, that car was fabulous. They talk about the product and not about the idea that the product materialized and morphed into 10,000 different cars. That's People are really not about interested in morphing. And if one thinks that, oh, if I show these great techniques, it's going to stop them, it may stop them, but it's not going to touch them. It's not relevant to them. Use your
Yeah,
technique to come up with something that makes sense to people, that touches them, that gets inside. I call it penetrates um, the outside, because everybody has armor against advertising. They don't, um, oh, it's an ad, it's an ad, it's an ad. I like non-ad ads. Actually, if you see something that doesn't come off like an ad, um, but sells the product
yeah,
and in a nice, tasteful, intelligent way, to me, that's the kind of advertising that I like to do and I respect.
I love that. There are often times where, you know, I'm very much into gear, especially camera gear. And I find that most ad campaigns around it are all about the tech and the specs and all the different things. And you already know this about me. I told you I have a 6-year-old. I'm like, I just need something where I could run and shoot and it's stabilized. Right. And
Right.
I and that's all that I need. And so when you when I see ad campaigns that make it easy for me to communicate, to persuade to my husband, we need this, right?
Mhm.
Then
Mhm.
that makes it easier for me to share. And to me, I think that's a powerful ad campaign too, where it's a product or it's a service or it's something that I know how to use it in my life. Like it
Mhm.
becomes a new habit for me. It's a no-brainer. It's just like, oh, when I go out, this is the first thing that I grab when we're going to have a new family adventure and whatnot.
Mhm. That's interesting you should mention that, um, because that relates to B2B advertising,
Yeah.
um, particularly the way I see it. Um, a lot of people say, "Oh, it's just a trade ad. It's nothing. It's not important." And I tell my clients that the trade is only consumers that are paid to buy your product. That's the only difference. Okay, so you have to make it worthwhile for them to pay for it because that's their job. Okay,
Yeah.
they got to buy the best stuff, and when they hear that, it changes everything. All of a sudden, the advertising is B2C, even though it's selling B2B. We always, my partner-in-law, Corey, and I, we always said we talk to the person in the business person. Okay, and that's where you're going to get stuff that people respect, they'll watch, and if it relates to them and helps their lives, that's going to help your client. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I feel like it's going back to the core human principles of we're all just trying to do the best that we can. And if there's a product or a service that's really going to help me fulfill that, then give it to me right now, you know,
hmm
then that's what makes
hmm
sense.
hmm
It's,
that's oh well, just that you brought me into another thing, and that's the intrinsic value. The
yes.
okay when we're talking about to prospects, are we interested in taking their account? We look at the intrinsic value. Is it something that is real inside the product? I've always said if you have to have $1 million sweepstakes to sell your product, you don't have a very good product. Concentrate on the product and not to put that $1 million into product development and make it something that people really want, and you don't have to bribe them to buy it. That's
Yeah. I, okay. I think that's brilliant because one of the things as a content creator or even just as an advertiser is the importance of looking at comments and getting feedback from your audience, whether on social media or um, they're writing emails and such. And I was reminded of one of my favorite features specifically about Agora Pulse is it's actually the ability to monitor comments and engagement on Facebook ads. It's actually one of the few tools out there that offers that feature. And I think as an ad agency, it's such a critical component to running successful advertising campaigns today. Because to your point, you want to see like, does this message resonate? Does it not? Or are there additional information in this ad that are making people confused? And so when you're able to pull that into Agora Pulse, it makes it so much easier. And
hmm
so the other thing that I'm thinking of is that, agencies and creative directors who really want to shine will want to make sure that they're on top of any type of audience engagement with their clients' advertisements. And that's really one reliable way. How you had talked about earlier for the if you see something, say something campaign, and there was a research group where they had questions and you would get feedback. Are there other ways that you're getting feedback on campaigns that you're doing for clients?
um, yeah. What I really look for is how it works in real life. I'm not big on black box testing. What I
Yeah.
like to do is go into a mini market or micro market, and do your testing there, see how the product works, see what people say about it, and also you make money while you're testing. as opposed to just put it in a black box, and you don't make a dime, and uh, you may not find out things that are as real as putting it out in a real situation. I mean, there. I believe in um, I believe in research more than testing, because if testing were absolutely right, nobody would have a failure. P&G would never have a failure. There would never be a flop movie, because the only thing that gets out to the public is the stuff that breaks the bank in the
Yeah.
tests. But then when it gets out in the real world, uh-oh, what do we do wrong? Um, and I think a lot is, I mean, people really play down instinct and intuition. That's what advertising is built on.
Yeah.
And if a person, along with everything else, doesn't feel it, they probably should be an accountant and not a creative person.
Yeah. That's a really great advice. I was just at a conference recently, and they talked the importance about storytelling and how more often than not, people that are creating content will talk about the features and the specs and the benefits, but not necessarily how it made them feel. And I think a lot of times when we're investing our money, our hard-earned money and our dollars into things, it's it's also very helpful to celebrate how it makes you feel, knowing that like I made a smart move, I created these new family memories, and tying in that emotion is always important. And if you have someone on your team that's always just data, 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 data,
Hmm.
without really tapping into the instincts and all of that, that's a huge part to miss
Yeah,
out on. Yeah.
yeah. I call that advertising by the numbers, and it's like doing a painting by the numbers. You're not going to do anything different or special, and it's it's all pre-programmed.
Yeah.
Um, Numbers can't tell you what to do. Um, it could give you information, it could stimulate, but it's a person's brain that has the idea.
Yeah.
Okay, no computer has a. Um, Let me put it to you this way: a computer never had their heart broken by their first date. Okay,
Oh,
a computer never gave birth to a child and see it grow up. There are human experiences that I draw from, and I think all really good creative people draw from, that have nothing to do with scales or numbers or whatever. Um, if you look at a lot of the great campaigns, you would say, okay, that came from a person, it didn't come from a computer. Um,
yeah.
you know, computers are good for certain things, but not to rely on, not to make your decisions for you, because then all decisions would be the same. One example I give is, if you have a problem and you feed it to 1,000 computers, the computers are going to have the same answer. But if you give it to people, people are going to have different answers, and somebody's going to come with something brilliant, or even more than one person, because they haven't. What they are fed is life experiences. What computers are fed are numbers. And
Yeah.
let me just say one thing, because I don't want it to think that there's only one way to do it. Um, the benefit of computers with any kind of research is the interpretation of it. The interpreters of whatever they learn, they're the brilliant ones, and the interpretation could be different with every person that's interpreting it. And then you got to decide that the people you hire, are they good interpreters? Have they nailed it in the past? Do they know what to look for and why to look for it? Some do. Some are brilliant, um, and then others just look at a spreadsheet and say, "Well, that's what the computer said to do," and that's it. That's what you're paying for, and go do it. And they do it, and it disappears. Invisible advertising.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's
I
things.
love, yeah, I love that you bring that up because even with everything that's happened within the last year and a half or so, right? There are different formulas, different strategies, different templates that advertising agencies have leaned on for so long. And I think keeping in mind that when there's a shift in mindset, when there's a shift in consumer behavior, you have to shift your messaging as well. Otherwise, it just comes off as tone deaf. You could have all the
Hmm.
data for things that have happened in the past, but we're here now. And
Hmm.
when we talk about artificial intelligence and whatnot and the data that they scrape from the internet, it only goes to the internet to like a certain date and time. It doesn't factor in what's happened within the last, you know, 12 months or so.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
being able to shift accordingly is definitely going to be important.
Yeah. I think something that relates to that that has always been a pet peeve of mine, and that's process. Process. Process rather than product makes no sense to me. When we first went into business, process was kind of having its heyday. Every agency had their own brand development process. 7 steps to guarantee your brand is going to be successful. They were the same exact 7 steps for everybody, but people called them something different, right? They
Yeah.
gave it a different name to give it a different spin. Okay, we did not believe in that. Process is like processed food. It's always going to go in one way and come out the same way every single time. Okay, so what we said, and we did best when people would interview 7 agencies, we were last. And we said that, look, you've seen a lot of companies and good companies, and they all have some kind of process. And we have a process too that we call it the thought process, and we apply it to everything we do. We got applause, okay, because it's not bullshit. It's just real the way people are, not the way business talks to them or thinks they are. The people are hell of a lot smarter if you give them smart opinions. Um, and the process doesn't do that. It's just like fancy footwork, but doesn't throw the right punches.
Yeah. Love it. Good. So to all of our viewers, Agency Accelerated, you know what we're going to cover next is absolutely going to tie in everything that we just discussed together and make it super simple for you to get started. But Alan, let me tell you, the
Hmm.
comments have been blowing up. Daniel Carey, for instance, he's asking, Alan, is there any particular author or ad man slash woman that influenced you in your approach? Also, do you have a book? Because he would love to hear more of you and the work that you've done.
Okay. Um, Bill Burnback was the person that made good advertising what it is today, um, because it was different. It came from people, not computers, not research. Volkswagen, it's ugly. That wouldn't come out from research. Research would have said, oh, that's terrible. You can't say a product is ugly. That came from insight and intuition. So I would say Bill Burnback, for me, is the king of advertising. He made it why I went into the business and why people I respect went into the business. They all say the same thing. He lit the fire. Okay, that's number one. As far as a
Yeah,
book, people for many years have said I should write a book. I should write a book. And I thought, who the heck would read it? I said, um, for if anyone that is interested, on LinkedIn, I do a series from time to time called Insight Advertising, and there are little vignettes of things that really happened to me. They deal mostly with how an ad is developed or how a campaign is developed. My thought process, and a lot of the stories are pretty funny because they're true. Um, Many of them just have to do with the business in general and how it's changed, and my own personal experiences that are just really ironic. I have 75 stories in it. I have another 25 ready to go in if I ever find the time to do it. It's called How to Think. Is the name of the book, and the I do for friends, um, and I guess people I want to impress. I guess I will send them a copy of it. It has not been proofread. I'm a king, the king of typos. I got the in the of it, Guinness book, the Guinness Book of Record for the most typos in one single sentence. Um, but uh, if anybody would be interested in the book before it goes on sale, which it probably never will, I'd be more than happy to share it uh, if they like.
Yes, please. I think we'll go ahead and add those into the show notes as well. I think when you're part of the ad agency world, there's always that saying of leaders are readers. And so whatever resources you have to share, I of course would love to have that. I think Daniel Carey, Stephen Love, Tim Sohn, everyone that's tuning in, they're all saying, what an amazing guest, Alan. So much to learn, so much thought leadership here, and such beautiful insight into how advertising has evolved over time and things to still stay true to, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so, having said that, Alan, we've been talking since the offset of the show about these amazing advertising campaigns that you've accomplished. And I know so often you must have dealt with tight deadlines and limited
Hmm.
budgets. What's your secret? How do you succeed in the face of such adversity?
Okay. Um, every business has adversity. Every job has pressure, and advertising is no different. And you know, like some people would say, "Oh, so competitive." Give me a business that is not competitive, okay, and I'll show you a business that's out of business. Um, okay, so what you do is you deal with it every day. The I've never missed a deadline because I get things done first. I'm not a procrastinator. Some people get something and they wait till the last minute to do it. I do it the first minute, and I make sure it's right, so I'm ready to do the next job. There was a young man that worked for us that was the king of procrastination. His desk had things piled up like this, and he was always late. Always late. Oh yeah, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that. He procrastinated procrastination. Okay, so I figured bright boy, and thought there's got to be some way to solve it. So I said to him, okay, look, put this in your mind. Make believe that your desk is nothing but hot coals, and everything you put on it will immediately burst into flames, and you'll never have it again, and you won't be able to do what you're supposed to do. Okay? Just think about that. Within 2 weeks, his desk was clean, and he was getting work out. Okay? Just to put that mental picture in his mind that a desk is not a place for storage. It's a place
Yeah,
just for the opposite. Put things in your brain and get it out.
that's smart. That's smart. I feel like sometimes people just need a shift in perception. I think
Exactly.
even as a content creator, when I first started, because still doing ads and the social media work for clients, I would have my desk and I would do that, and then eventually live streaming or being an MC and a host, I would have to be on camera, and at that point, I had to separate the two. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is my work machine, this is my entertainment machine,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever's on this Mac M1 Mini is only for the show, and whatever's here is only for work. So I try not to mix the two because there's an
Interesting.
intention. Yeah.
Mm. Hmm. Well, you're doing a good job. That's all I can say.
Well, thank you. And Alan, I mean, honestly, it has been such a pleasure to talk with you and hear your stories and get your perspective on the advertising and agency life. Where, if we were to direct our loyal listeners and our viewers, can you tell folks where to find you? Where's the best place?
Find me? Find
Yeah,
me? Oh,
find you, learn more. You talked about LinkedIn and the vignettes.
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot on LinkedIn. There was a hell of a lot more, but my LinkedIn page was hacked a
Oh
couple of
no.
years ago. Yeah, yeah, and I had tons of stories in there that just went up in smoke. Um, but there's still some there, and the book. Excuse me. Okay, and the book has culled them together, and I think it's a joy. It makes people laugh. I like to make people laugh for the right reason, not to be silly.
Yeah.
Yeah, or funny, just ironic things that happen in life that are that are essentially amusing.
Yeah. Love
Okay,
it.
the if anybody would like to send me a note or anything like that, it's Alan at allenk.us. And if anyone would like to see the work that I've done in the past and I'm doing now, it's under the company that I have since I went independent about 6 years ago. Um, the advertising company.us, and I think there's a lot to learn with a spoonful of sugar that lets the helps the lesson go down.
I love it. All wonderful resources. And everyone, that's all that we have today, folks. But don't worry, we still have a fantastic series of shows coming up. In fact, in our next episode, we'll be talking to the incredible entrepreneur and evangelist Guy Kawasaki, followed by Jarek Robbins, Lee Goff, and more. So please remember to subscribe to the calendar at agorapulse.com/calendar if you want to be sure to catch our live episodes. If you enjoy podcast listening, we're excited to share that Agency Accelerated is also available on all podcast channels, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon. Please subscribe, leave a review, let us know what you think. And not only that, though, remember to take advantage of our free webinar on how to add agency revenue by adding social media services at bit.ly/add agency revenue. And I don't want to leave this just yet. I really have to say, Paula Aaron Rose had said, Alan is an amazing human being too. So I want you to remember that. All right, everyone. I'll see you and your agency accelerating into the next show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Excellent. Well,
Yeah. All of the links. Can't wait to share that. Woo!
let me fire back.